Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar, Robert Lazar, oh my god. So in this expert body language analysis, we're going to look at what these three body reactions mean.
And
why that's all that we need to see if Bob Lazar is lying or not. Is he telling the truth? Do aliens exist? Stay tuned throughout this video and you'll understand why I've reached my conclusion on whether I believe Bob Lazar, on whether Bob Lazar is telling the truth or not. So welcome back to the Believingbruce channel. Anything to do with body language, performance psychology, head and heart. If you're interested in the head and heart or being a better version of you, then subscribe to this channel. Go on then, hit that subscribe button. Remember also, if you're enjoying the content, give it a thumbs up and hit the notification buttons to get more of the videos in the future if you like what I'm producing. And again, if you're another YouTuber, a creator, a news channel, documentary, whatever it is, then feel free to do so. My Carol Baskin body language assessment got me just under 500,000 views, but there was another channel who used my video and they got nearly 2.5 million views. Again, no copyright restrictions here. Share the joy, share the learning. So let's get into it then. Bob Lazar. Oh my, if I had £1 or $1, wherever you are in the world, for every time someone's messaged me saying, Believingbruce, you need to do a video on Bob Lazar, I'll be the first one to admit I'm not really into do aliens exist or not. It's not something that comes on my radar a lot. It's not something that I spend an odd amount of time trying to understand, to say yes they do or no they don't. And I'm not in either tribe, if I can say it this. So when I've done the investigation, a lot of the messages, you know, he's a crazy guy, absolute lunatic. Across to, of course they exist, and he's 100% truthful. And there is a spectrum there. But I don't really give a shit. I'm not really bothered if aliens exist or not. But the benefit of that is I come from a totally neutral position. I'm not trying to prove one party right or the other party wrong or vice versa. What I'm going to do today is a competent, professional body language assessment on Bob Lazar when he was present, when he was being questioned backwards and forwards on Joe Rogan's podcast. And what I'm doing by this is I'm only going to analyse the first section of the video. So there's about an hour at the start where it's just Joe and Bob, and they're going backwards and forwards. There's another guy called Jeremy, who at about the hour mark, that's when Jeremy starts coming into the conversation. So I'm only going to take that first hour section where it's only Joe Rogan and Bob Lazar going backwards and forwards. And the reason why I'm going to do that is when you bring a third person, like somebody else comes in, that changes the dynamic. There is nothing stronger from a body language perspective than me just looking at you in the eye like I'm doing here. And the beautiful thing with being in that neutral position is I'm more able to see that emotional baseline of Bob. What does he do normally versus what does he do more of or less of at a certain particular point in time when either Joe Rogan is asking the question or Bob is responding. So because I'm neutral, because I'm in the middle and I'm not trying to prove anybody right or wrong, I'm more likely to be able to pick up on all of the available data, or let's just say more of the available data, because I'm not using a cerebral technique, a psychological tool called magnification. Now magnification comes in, and actually let's explore this with you. I want you to think of a person who maybe you don't get on with, or you think who's brilliant. It could be one of your role models, it could be somebody who you watch on TV and you took an instant dislike to. What we can do is we can magnify stuff, alright? So that person you've got a certain concept or an idea or an opinion of. And what you can do is you can, what I call that filtration, that magnify, is that if they've hurt you in the past, alright, let's just say someone's wounded you, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, whatever it is, but you know, there's that hurt that lies there. Then what you can do to try and stay away from future hurt is you've got an opinion of that person that you'll try to solidify. You'll try to turn into a more concrete picture in your mind. So every time that person does something that aligns with the opinion that you've got with them, the image that you've got with them, you'll take that, you'll recognise it, and you add it on to say, yes, that person is a bad person. But what can happen over here is every time that person does something good or nice, or they've done something really well, because that doesn't fit in with your picture or the answer that you're trying to prove, the output that you're trying to get, then what you can do is you can just push that to the side. I'll not recognise that, but I'm going to magnify everything. Conscious bias, subconscious bias. That allows me to create the image that I want, the answer that I want. Because I'm not trying to prove anything, I'm more neutral to see what else is going on there and bring it all to the table. And again, remember, I've been doing this for 20 years in investigations, people profiling, interviews, all this type of stuff where people come in and they give off body language. When people talk about, the lie detector test. Remember, the lie detector test picks up on physiological and psychological changes in the body, that sort of combination. But if you're good at reading body language, you don't need to be wired up to this machine. If you look for the slight tweaks, the instant twitches, the automatic giveaways, you don't need one of these wires because you can see what's going on. Because every time you have a physiological change within the body does something. You just need to know where to observe. You just need to know what you're looking for. So coming from a neutral position, let's get into it. Now what I do want to say here is obviously the position with Joe Rogan's podcast is that it goes from Joe to Bob. Ideally, from a body language perspective, I would be able to give more authentic, more accurate feedback if I was sitting in front of Bob looking at him constantly. So the data that I'm going is just off that video. I can only go off the video footage that is on Joe Rogan's podcast. But what we see here, the first bit, there's actually a bit of body language that you don't see, but Joe reacts to. Now it's interesting because Joe says about Area 51. And when Joe says Area 51, now I haven't seen Bob, I can't see him at that particular moment. But you see from Joe's reaction, Bob's either shifted in his chair or he's pulled a face or he's had a little bit of an adrenaline dump. Because you see Joe sort of stop and he even tries to explain what he's just seen. You sort of lean there. And what happened at that particular moment is Joe has said something. Right? Joe said Area 51. Now, that information has hit Bob's thalamus. That thalamus has detected some type of threat because it's went to the amygdala. The amygdala has then spoken to the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, adrenal gland, and Bob is reacted right in that moment. Could have been a twitch, could have been a could have been a something to give the impression to Joe that Joe wasn't being accurate. But what we've got here is an example of how Joe is aware of Bob's body language because Joe picks it up. Have a look at the clip.
Let's give them the bullet points. You used to work at Area 51. And Area 51, you went like, huh?
Well, we want to be accurate.
Okay.
Area S4.
S4, okay.
It's about 15 miles south of Area 51.
Okay.
So again, this is something that I try to get across on the Believingbruce channel, is that we can all observe better. And when you start observing, you can be more in tune with the people in front of you. This is what you see happening with Joe Rogan and Bob here. And also what's interesting is that if Bob Lazar was lying, if he was trying to authenticate his story in a way that is celebratory, in a way that is trying to cover up any holes or, cover up the lies that he's got, then what tends to happen with liars is that they tend to go along with the story as long as it's supportive of them, as long as it's backing their claims up. So here you've got an opportunity where Joe says Area 51. Bob could have just rolled with that, but he didn't. He stopped him. He checks him and he gives a specific correction about, no, it's not that, but this is what it is. Now that's important, all right? That's important for a number of reasons. Because Bob could have let that roll. That story would have been supporting him. And actually Area 51, it's known throughout the world, etc. Yeah, to add that sort of energy to the conversation. But it's telling already that Bob is prepared to check, to challenge, to be specific on the details, rather than just letting it continue. And that behaviour is a very truthful behaviour. So now we're looking for Bob's emotional baseline. What does he do more of the time? So when I'm interviewing people, when I'm trying to try and find out their baselines, I'll ask a series of questions that hopefully will elicit certain emotions, that I'm asking them to do different things. I'll ask them something that they know, I'll ask them something that they don't know, I'll ask them something that makes them sad, I'll ask them something that makes them happy. And I'm watching what their body is doing all of the time. So what we've got here is Joe Rogan asks a question, and you can see, and it's just a flash, all right? It's just a flash, but that is something you need to be aware of if you want to get better at body language reading. Bob flashes his eyes to the right-hand side just for a split second, and then he comes back into the middle. So that there could be, but we need more data, we need more evidence, we need him to do it again. That's where he recalls. So the top right-hand side where his eyes go, that is where he's trying to recall a memory from. Take a look.
How would you describe it?
I guess...
Alright, so that little indicator there, when I'm asking the questions to the people who I'm working with, assessing, investigating, I'm looking for those little tells, the instant that you can't control, that's autonomous. Just a flash in the pan, okay, I know now where I think he recalls, and it seemed a truthful answer, where he recalls the truth from. So I've banked that one, I've put that one in the back pocket. Now what we get here is Joe asks him about where he worked before, and you see a little rub here. And he explains that he used to work at a place called Los Alamos, something to do around that. So his cheek just didn't get itchy. And remember, body language, what we're looking for at that T-junction, at that particular moment. What were they saying, what was the body doing? So when he's describing that, what you've got here is a self-soothe. Anything around the nose or the cheeky area, it's a self-soothe. It's like, hey, come on, it's okay to say that. Now, I don't know what Bob is thinking there, but I do know he was thinking something. And this is where body language comes into it. You need to be able to observe those slight tells that if you're questioning, or if you're interviewing, interviewers can pick up a lot of skills from body language reading, is that if you notice somebody doing that and you want to get more out of them, then I wouldn't move. I'm going to zone in deeper and deeper and deeper onto that particular point until I find out why he was self-soothing. But here's a look. And
you got that job. Before that, you were working...
Before that, I had worked at Los Alamos.
So again, this look to the right-hand side here. Joe Rogan asks another question, and you'll see, but just in an instant, it's that flick up to the right-hand side. That there tells me that's all that I need. 2 examples of that's where he recalls the truth from. Have a look.
So how do they approach you to say, hey, Bob, why don't you come on out to the Nevada desert?
So both of them seem like truthful answers. So I can now confirm that, as much as you can, that when Bob's telling the truth, that's where he's going to look. He's going to look slightly up and to the right, just for that split second. That's his memory recall spot. And I want to talk about Bob's emotional baseline here. So this is part where he's talking about how he started off in jet engines and driving to work in his car with a jet engine on the back. And you'll see Bob's got an emotional baseline of actually he shakes his head quite a lot, as well as blinking. Now again, shaking the head, if you didn't understand the emotional baseline, you'd say, well, he's shaking his head at that particular moment. So if you're saying he did, but he's shaking his head, you could say, well, actually, I need to dig that little bit deeper there. I need to zone in. But Bob's emotional baseline, and you need to be aware of that to give someone a balanced and fair assessment, is that he shakes his head quite a lot. And he also blinks quite a lot as well. So I'm going to show you this just to show you what Bob's emotional baseline is. But he's tend to sit still. Yeah, his hands don't move that much. He'll shake his head, he blinks every now and again. That is his baseline. So if he does anything outside of this, if he does more of it, if he does any other actions, or if he does less of it, that's where we want to pay attention to.
I'd put a jet engine in my Honda, and Los Alamos put it on the front page of the paper. It said, Los Alamos man, physicist at the lab, built this 200-mile-an-hour, Honda jet car that I drove to work.
Now this is another part about Area 51. So Joe Rogan's talking about the contract, obviously you're coming to Area 51. Now Area 51's got that sort of celebratory, type of really intrigue feeling about it. So if Bob wasn't, if he was trying to create a name for himself, he was trying to, build up this PR, he was releasing a book or a video or anything like that, he would jump on Area 51 because it's a thing, it's an accelerator, it's an enabler for people to get really excited about the topic that they're talking about. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't say, yeah, it was 51. Again, he corrects Joe Rogan. Or he offers information that's more specific. And what he says is, he says, it didn't say Area 51. What it said was some, a remote location which we knew was the test site. So here, on this specific action, you've got another truthful type behaviour. He's not exaggerating with it. He's not flowing with it because it's going in his favour. He's stopping the conversation and saying, no, that's not quite accurate. This is the truth.
So you had known about it from the scientific community? Because Area 51 at that time was
No, they didn't say anything
classified.
about Area 51.
Okay, so they
just said it was in a remote location, and you just know it was up at the test site.
And on this example here, Joe Rogan asked a specific question about, okay, take me back to the start, take me back to day one. What was your first day like on the job? And you'll see Bob, his baseline normal, his eyes flick up to the right-hand side and then it comes back to the centre. Again, it's those little things that if you're just watching the eyeball, it's that little flick and then it comes down there. Now, because we've had that a number of times, we can call it a cluster. It's happened again and again and again. So this adds some more confirmation, affirmation if you will, to Bob is probably telling the truth. But he's also going somewhere to recollect an image. That's what he's doing. And if it's truthful, which all the evidence at present says that it is truthful because of his past behaviours, and his truthful responses coupled with those body language giveaways, those little tells where the eyes move, I've got no reason to doubt that this response, he is telling them that on his first day this is what happened. So me, I will be saying now, okay, this guy has gone there, he has been present somewhere, because what he's telling the truth. And in relation to the answer or the question that Joe Rogan has asked and the answer he's been given, there's not one bit of doubt at this moment that Bob Lazar is telling anything but the truth.
Take me back to first day on the job. You accept the job. You accept the job. You accept the job.
Now this is where we get the first element of discomfort. Remember, body language, two of the key things that you can focus on is comfort and discomfort. Anything below or above his emotional baseline can allow us to say, okay, why did he do that or why did he not do that, and zone in. And when Joe Rogan asks him specifically about when was the first time you realised that this stuff that was going on or that you were seeing or working on was out of this world, it didn't belong on Earth. What you get here is Bob rubs his lip. Okay, Bob rubs his lip. Now at that particular moment, remember that T-junction? Yeah, 2 seconds before, 2 seconds after. What were they saying, what was their body doing at that particular time? That's where we're going to zone in. And you'll see here that Bob does a lip rub. Now notice it's not on the nose. Two very different things, and it's very important to acknowledge that. But at that particular moment he's doing a lip rub. Now what that is, it's a sign of lip compression as well, along those similar lines. So lip compression is where you want to say something but you stop yourself. You've probably done it a million times yourself, where somebody asks you a question or somebody annoys you. You do this, lip compression. It's saying that you want to say something but you're actually stopping yourself. What we've got here with Bob Lazar is that he rubs his lip. He's not itching his nose, he's not rubbing his nose, that comes later on. But on this particular moment here where he's talking about the first time he thought this was out of this world, you'll see him rub his lip. And what he's doing here, he's saying, it's okay Bob, come on, you can say it. That's exactly what that lip rub there is, that self-soothe. He doesn't do it before, he doesn't do it after. It's, hey, come on, you can talk about this.
You realize, like, at what point in time did you say, hey, this is not normal work? Like, this doesn't even seem like it's from this planet.
That I can't.
Now also what you've got here is that when the camera pans to him, he's looking straight ahead. Yeah, he's looking straight ahead. And you'll see here, I've just indicated an arrow where you can see clearly where his eyes are looking. So there's no recall there at all. But because his recall is so quick up and down, I'm talking milliseconds, that maybe it's happened and the camera hasn't picked up on it, or maybe he hasn't done it and he's not being truthful. Without being in front of Bob, again, I can only go on the video evidence there, is that he's got a lip rub here, and then his eyes looking straight forward, so there is no recall. Based on his previous behaviours, I would start to doubt that and think, okay, why that lip rub combined with the looking ahead, which is different from what he's done up until now, which has all been truthful, why is that different? But again, I must make and acknowledge the fact, remember, I'm not trying to prove either party right or wrong, is that it could have been a split second out of the editing where he did, because it's so quick that it could have happened, but they might have just missed it. But on the evidence that I've got, to be fair and balanced, you've got a behavioural cluster there. A lip soothe with an eye look that's not in the direction of recall. I would have liked to ask some different questions there just to go around that topic to see what else his body was doing at that particular time. But then Bob gets us straight back on track. Joe's asking him about the first time he saw the UFO, the flying saucer, whatever you guys call it. And what we've got here is an eye block. Oh, we've got an eye block. A strong, strong eye block. Now what an eye block is when you're talking about a certain thing and you want to block out that image. Your eyes shut when you talk about it. Or someone can be asking you a question and you'll see people start to blink because what they're trying to do, again, I don't know if anybody follows the UFC, but Conor McGregor was talking about his loss to Khabib, or he's actually been asked a question about it. And what you've got is a series of blinks within one of the Conor McGregor interviews, which is him blocking out that loss to Khabib. And when people block that particular, what they're looking at is there's an image there. There has to be an image that they're then trying to block out. That's why you get the eyelids shutting. So, when Joe Rogan asked him about the first time he saw a UFO, he talks about and at that particular moment when he talks about the saucer or the UFO, the word that he says, he does a very strong eye block. Very, very strong eye block. Now this is the key. That does not mean he's lying. What it means is he's trying to block out an image. To block out the image, you've got to have an image in there that you're trying to block out. Do you follow me? If there was nothing there, the eye block wouldn't have come. The fact is that there was something there. I do believe he saw that UFO, and that's why you've got the eye block. Remember, it's an autonomous reaction, and you wouldn't have blocked that out if you hadn't have seen it. If you hadn't have seen the UFO, there would be nothing to block out. So, from an eye block perspective on this specific behaviour, that to me gives an indication that he has indeed seen something, and it, for me, he's truthfully talked about what he's seen.
Pulled in with the bus and gone around the front through a normal double door. This time that I went in, there were hangar doors open. I went in through the hangar door, and in the hangar door was the discs.
Again, here we've got Bob back to his normal. Joe asks a question about, the reactor. He's trying to get some more details about the reactor, what Bob's discussing. And then you see Bob again, he's straight back up to the right-hand side. That's where he's looking. This is where his recall is.
Was it about this reactor that made you think that it didn't exist?
And also, what I believe to be another truthful example is when Bob is talking about the reactor. He says it's like half the size of a basketball on a metal plate. He's actually looking down, so his body is going through the image of like, I'm looking down here, I'm actually touching it, I'm actually around it, which gives credibility, which gives affirmation, if you will, gives context to the fact that he is talking about something that was there, because he's looking down on it, which is his muscle memory, which is his recall system, that he's actually there. That recall system, his body is reacting, he is seeing the thing down here that he was working on, which again, from a body language perspective, again, biology doesn't lie, all right? Biology does not lie. Bob at that particular moment is being truthful.
This was a small reactor about the size of a hemisphere, about the size of... This was a small reactor about the size of a hemisphere, about the size of...
Just a quick one, guys. If you're enjoying the content that I'm delivering, if you're educating yourself or finding something out that you didn't know before, it would be great if you could subscribe to support the channel and give us a thumbs up. That would be fantastic. And also, when he's talking about the reactor here, what you get is a detailed description of how it felt. Now, Bob talks about gravity and then he goes to anti-gravity. So he's trying to convey that when he goes to try and put his hands on it, there's Bill, his lab partner who he was discussing it with. He goes to put his hands on it, but he can't. It pushes him back like a magnet. But you actually see him looking at his hands, and then he uses the word at the very end, yeah? It's like a cushion effect. Now, this is very descriptive. It's a feeling word. He's not just saying, yes, I couldn't put my hands. He's given more than that. Not too much that it's actually, he's going into a little bit too much detail here, probably too much than the average person, so that would raise my awareness to, well, why is he going into too much detail? But that fact that he's given a sensation, a feeling word around it, adds credibility to he has definitely felt something.
Almost like he was bragging, go ahead, try and touch the sphere, and I couldn't. It pushed my hands away, just like two like poles of a magnet. So that was...
so like when you take two magnets and you're trying to press them together and they push against each other?
Yeah, that kind of cushion feeling, but you can't get them together there.
But this is the best one for me, all right? That Bob is now describing to Joe Rogan that his predecessor, the lab partner that was there before Bob Lazar, has died in some type of incident where they were trying to cut open the reactor. And what you notice here is Joe Rogan is basically saying, well, like, they've let you touch it, but somebody died from touching it. And what I want you to do is notice how Joe asked the question. First of all, in the lead up to the question, he's looking very confused. He's like, so they've done this, they've done that. And then when he says, but they let you touch it, Joe Rogan raises his head. So he sits that little bit taller, which is like, are you for real here? Yeah, I'm actually challenging you with a question. So you'll see him at the mic, and then he literally comes up from the microphone. Now that is a threatening gesture. What Joe's doing there, he's sort of lifting his ventral fronting. I'm showing you all my organs here because there's something that I actually want to challenge you on. That's what he's doing. He's challenging him with that question. Now what we've got, because remember, yes, you can practice lies, but body reactions is autonomous. Just like on the lie detector test, the physiological changes that you get are instantaneous to come there. And what a lot of people would do at this particular point here is they could panic. They would get that adrenaline dump. The sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight would kick in. That doesn't happen with Bob. And there's a reaction here that I just want to go into. And it's called the globus sensation. It happens in the throat area. Now, when you're challenged, if you're lying, you know you're lying, even though you might be trying to convince other people, all right? But if you're lying, you know you're lying. And what can happen is you can get a stress reaction that occurs in the throat. And it's called the globus sensation. Now, this happened on one of my Prince Andrew videos. If you haven't seen it, have a look. But Prince Andrew has been asked a question about, would you give under oath, would you be prepared to be challenged in court? Something along those lines, where the reporter just basically says, right, are you prepared to stand up in front of a jury and give evidence? And what happens here with Prince Andrew, and it's the first time it happens all the way through his interview, he gets this globus sensation. And that's where the muscles around the neck tighten and you see him almost choking. And you've probably had this happen to you before. It just tightens so tight that it actually stops you speaking. Here's the example.
The truth. Would you be willing to testify or give a statement under oath if you were asked?
The shove and the legal and the legal.
What we've got here is Bob Lazar does not bat an eyelid at this challenging question. He just goes on to explain it. There is no movement in his emotional baseline. There is no pause, there is no stutter, there is no globus sensation. There is no defensive reaction. And he's been challenged directly by Joe Rogan with a very threatening question if he was trying to cover something up. But you'll see that Joe asked the question and Bob just flows with it.
A horrific accident, like where someone died, or?
Yeah, where somebody died.
Because they were trying to tamper with things or figure out how something worked?
Yeah, the reactor in particular.
But yet he let you touch it.
Yeah, I think what they were trying to do was cut into one.
Again, there's nothing there other than the truth. I can't sit here and say he's lying because there is nothing at present that I could definitely say that doesn't make sense. He just flows there with one of the most threatening questions that Joe Rogan has asked him. At a time where if he knew he was lying, that's when that adrenaline would have kicked in. That's when that fight or flight would have come. Oh, I'm lying. No, nothing. He just answers it in a calm, even humorous way. That, yeah, this is what happened, but I think they had been trying to cut it open. Now in this one, Bob displays a thing called visualization. So it's not a visualization as a sports coach and model, you want to be great. But what he's doing, he's recalling the situation that Joe Rogan is asking about. And the question is, did you see the other flying saucers? Did you see the other UFOs? And Bob starts to explain the situation, and it's his hands that, for me, add credibility to it. And the way that he explains, well, this is where we were, and I could see the hangar doors, and it was down here. Again, his emotional baseline doesn't change. That cadence doesn't change. Everything about it, and the way that his body's moving with what the words are saying, adds up to this is, in this specific situation, or this example, very authentic. It's very truthful. There's nothing that you could pull apart and say, he's lying.
Say what how the others operated.
Did you see the other ones?
Yeah. At one time, and only one time, the bay doors between the hangars were all open, and I could see all the way through.
Now what we have got here is a scratch of the face. Oh, a scratch of the face. Is this where Bob lets himself down? I'm not sure. Again, comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts about whether you believe in Bob or not, or what you're thinking about this analysis. Are you picking up on anything that I'm not? Are you aware of anything that I'm not? Let me know below. But this scratch of the face. Now we talked about before, Bob did a thing called self-soothe. Alright, self-soothe. So that's here. A soothe with the flat of the finger. That's a soothe. What we see here is a scratch. That is an irritant. And again, I'm just giving you an example of a body language giveaway here. And the idea of this, if you're conversing with different people, or you're in a room or in a group meeting one-on-one, or plural people, many people, it's these little things that if someone does something with body language and you're observant enough to actually see this and zone in, For example, someone scratching their face, that's an irritation. They're using their nails. And remember what Bob said, it's not that he's just got an itchy cheek, all right? He hasn't just got an itchy cheek. At that particular time, he's talking about the power of the reactor. That's what he's talking about. So we really had no idea of how much power it was on a phenomenal scale. And I think he mentions about taking it back into this, or our nuclear reactor, and taking it back into Victorian times and just plonking it down there and saying, get on with it. Like, the scientists back there would have no idea what they were dealing with. But you see, he's actually thinking that story, so the narrative that he's given is also playing the story in his head. And what you see is when he scratches himself, he's talking about the power. What that's telling you is that in Bob's head, he's really unsure or even fearful, because it's irritating him, of the genuine power that this reactor holds. That's what he's talking about at that particular time. The power, it's phenomenal. We've got no idea what we're actually dealing with here. And he scratches his face. That again is an authentic body language giveaway. It matches, you've got that synchrony, you've got that congruence, as we call it, in this field. That he believes that the power is so phenomenal, it could actually be dangerous to either the people around or mankind in general. But this is what you get from the scratch.
The excitement kind of turned to dread at some point, because the amount of power we're dealing with is astronomical. I mean, to affect gravity, to produce the effects like this equipment does, takes huge amounts of power. And I've given the example before of, taking a small portable nuclear reactor and putting it back into Victorian times.
And then finally, we've got the Pinocchio moment here. Now, a lot of people associate the rub of the nose with someone's lying. And I wanted to hold this bit until last. Because again, let's be truthful, let's be balanced, let's be neutral. Yeah, let's be factual. Is that body language gives away comfort versus discomfort. It allows you to see certain points of discomfort that if you then wanted to, you wouldn't move forward in your question or your investigation. You'd zone in right there to try and find out why they're feeling uncomfortable. That's the key. I'm not moving anywhere until I get to the bottom of why you've just displayed a sign of discomfort. And this is what you get here. Bob rubs his nose. So what it does tell you, he's uncomfortable with something. And what he is talking about is a story, is an analogy. And the story that he talks about is that if you were to take a motorbike back to the wagon days, I think wagon days in America must be, I don't know, the Wild West, or when the trains just started coming through, I've got no idea, but a long time ago, that you could dump a motorbike off and a set of keys, and eventually they might get someone to be able to turn it on and ride it, but you wouldn't know how to make the engine, you wouldn't know why it moves, etc. And this is the story that he tries to explain, like how he feels about the UFOs at the site where he worked. And the reason why he does this, he's uncomfortable saying this description. Now this could be, he just feels a bit daft, he just feels a little bit stupid for using this, or he hasn't actually used that story in the past. Or he wanted to, but he didn't feel like he had the confidence to use that story. But I wanted to use this little bit here as an indicator that just because somebody rubs their nose doesn't mean they're lying, but it does mean that they're uncomfortable. Biology doesn't lie, all right? Biology doesn't lie. It does mean that they are uncomfortable. Have a look.
Well, they knew there was a fuel source in it, and they were proficient at making it work. And again, my analogy to something like this is
Okay, so bringing that together, because at this point here, Jeremy starts getting asked questions, the dynamic changes, so it's not as authentic, it's not as accurate, it's not as specific. So on everything that we've got there, on the body language information that we've got, on the verbalization information that we've got, the relationship between Joe Rogan and Bob Lazar, what Bob does do as his emotional baseline, what has he done more of, what has he done less of, watching it numerous times for the micro expressions and micro behaviors that are present when comfort is there, but also present when discomfort is there, which could equal lies, which could equal untruth. Do I think Bob Lazar worked at a place where there were UFOs? Do I think Bob Lazar has seen the reactor that he's talking about? Do I think Bob Lazar is telling the truth? On the information that I've got, not looking at anything else, only Bob Lazar's reactions, in everything that I've just talked about, there is nothing there that I could say conclusively to strongly point out that Bob Lazar is a liar. Nothing. And again, I'm not in one camp or the other, and I need you to appreciate that. There is nothing that Bob Lazar has done that would indicate to me on this footage alone, and again, what I would say is that I would like to speak to Bob, or anybody who I'm interviewing, because if I can see your face, if I can see your hands, again, there wasn't much hands with Joe Rogan, it was the sort of torso up, the hands and the feet and the legs, that's where you get a load of body language for. And again, if I was looking at Bob directly, I wouldn't have to rely on camera edits just to capture everything, because I'm there, I've got all the data in front of me. But on Joe Rogan's podcast, with all the questions that Bob answered, at the most specific, authentic, intense time between him and Joe Rogan, before Jeremy started coming in and changing the dynamic, do I believe Bob Lazar is telling the truth? I do. I absolutely believe that he is telling the truth. Yeah, I would like to ask some more questions, etc., just to make sure, but if I had to sit on one part or the other, for me, Bob Lazar, absolutely truthful. Like, this was such an authentic, natural flow and interview. For me, there was like, I just couldn't get anything where it was setting my senses off. Like Prince Andrew, oh my God, all the way through Prince Andrew's interview, discomfort. Discomfort was his emotional baseline. He's shielded, he's trying to protect himself. The answers he was giving, like everything was just, there's a high probability that this guy is lying. Here, there's a high probability that this guy is telling the truth. So I hope you've enjoyed that explanation. I hope you find it fair and balanced, and that it's on data, because that's where, we can all get carried away with emotions, etc. But when you base the facts on data rather than emotional reasoning, and you're not trying to prove right or wrong, but you're neutral, then you got more chance of seeing what is in front of you. You got more chance of observing more of the data to give you a more logical and factual answer. So if you have enjoyed this content, remember, subscribe to the channel below. That would be really appreciated. Give us a thumbs up, but also leave your comments below. Leave your comments about anything to do with this video that either you would like to ask me or you would like me to follow up on. And also, if there's any other people you would like me to do a professional body language assessment on, you can catch me at Twitter at Believingbruce or Instagram Believingbruce360. But again, the whole idea is if you enjoy psychology, you enjoy anything to do with the head and heart, body language, then please subscribe to this channel. But more important than any of this, believe in Bruce. Remember to be kind to yourselves and each other.